between you can still surf 5 hours a day and have 8 hours of the day to go explore Costa Rica. I started finding the waterfalls, finding different beaches, and just meeting the right people where I was able to say, we'll make your week whatever you want it to be.
Welcome to the Flow State Yoga for Athletes podcast. I'm your host, Dan Rosenak, lifelong student athlete, here to share with you interesting discussions featuring athletes and coaches exploring health and human performance, yoga, and flow state awareness. I hope this show helps us all access our highest potential. Thank you and enjoy the journey. Welcome to the show, Bryan Gleason, New Jersey veteran lifeguard from Long Branch Ocean Rescue, director of the Junior Lifeguard program in Long Branch, and owner of Surf Costa Retreat Center in Playa Rios, Costa Rica, lifelong athlete and naturalist. We're going to explore Bryan's journey, his story, and get into some fun topics. So thank you for joining us, Bryan.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Tell us about growing up on the shore. What was it like as a kid? And tell us kind of your journey into ocean rescue.
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called West Long Branch, which is right next to Long Branch, where I worked my whole life. Luckily, I was blessed to have parents that loved the beach. From the day school ended till the day it started, every single day, no matter what, we were at the beach. We grew up at a beach club called Takanasi. It's like that kind of middle class beach club style. It wasn't like, the Seabright beach clubs or growing up in like Spring Lake or something like that. It was very middle class, low key, and everybody was, frothing over being at the beach and in the water. All my best friends I grew up with, that became my best friends, we met down there. My dad was a lifeguard when we were babies. So he was, always worked in like Long Branch or Asbury. Between those two, flipping back and forth depending on where certain people went. So we were always surrounded by our uncles that were lifeguards, chiefs of different towns. And going to the beach, we were always surrounded by the lifeguards. When my parents weren't at the beach, the lifeguards were taking care of us, babysitting us, and knew we were in the water. Yeah, we grew up at the beach. Both my brothers, one of them becoming a professional surfer, the other one just passionate about surfing and fishing and everything around the water. We were pretty much destined to be beach people. We didn't have a choice. Say that. And I gotta say, I was blessed to be born into this kind of life. If I was from Kansas, I don't know if I'd be living the same life that I am right now, 40 years later.
Tell us how Surf Costa was founded and kind of how it's developed into what it is now and what that's like.
Okay, so me and my brother, we were both at, rewind a little bit. I was still in high school. My older brother, Sean, was going to a school out in Wilmington, North Carolina. And after his first semester, he wasn't over school, but he was like, I want to go learn Spanish. I think he didn't know what he was going to study yet. And he was like, I'm going to go take a sabbatical and go live in Costa Rica with one of his other friends who was a neighbor of ours that went out there with him, and two twins from North Carolina. They lived I think they had like $2 a day to spend. They wouldn't even spend 25 cents on a bus ride. They would walk the hour through the jungle to get to the ocean, eat beans out of a can, and then walk back instead of, spending an extra dollar on a bus ride and not having to walk 2 hours a day. So they fell in love with it. And that same year, while he was on that sabbatical, we went to visit him, my mother and my little brother. and we ended up meeting him in another part of Costa Rica from where he was living with his friends. And I fell in love with it. I was like, wow, this is where I'm going to be one day. Not knowing that at 16 years old that I was really going to make it there. But in my head, I was like, this is my life right here. So we went and visited him for we ended up staying extra time. I think it was almost like 3 weeks. My mom pulled us out of school for a little bit. And then my father came down to visit us the last week. Couldn't come the whole time because he was working. And my older brother learned Spanish in that few 4 or 5 months that he went on his own down there. Then he came back to school, and we were both at Monmouth. Fast forward a couple of years, he was finishing at Monmouth, and I was starting at Monmouth. And he was graduated with a Spanish degree. So once he had that Spanish degree, he knew he wanted to live in Costa Rica. So he went down there again and found this little place. I was actually backpacking there at the time because I only had a month or two off in between school. And I was backpacking on my own. He was doing his own thing, but we were meeting up here and there. I'd go over here for a week. He would stay where he was. He kept coming back to each other. And he found where he was staying at this place called Brise's in Playa Hermosa. He became friends with the owner, who was also a real estate agent. And he's like, "Hey, let me go show you this house." And we brought him one day to show him this house, which is where you went, where you saw. And he ended up going there and saying, "Hey, this is a price, I can't pay for it by myself, but let me go back home and see what I can do." And he convinced my mother at the time, and she said, "Listen, if you find one more person, I'll go I'll be a silent partner and go third with you." It wasn't like a crazy chunk of money. I think it was at the time it was like maybe 100,000 total. So he found his third person, which is Jay Webb, our partner now. And we had one house. That's all we had was one house. So we started off with now I was in my last year of college, and my brother's like, "Hey, you want to come live with me and come do this? I'm gonna start this. We're gonna start doing these tours. You could be the tour guide and everything." So I was like, "Well, mom's gonna kill me." But yeah, I'm going. So my last year, I had like high 3 point something average. I was doing well in school, but my heart wasn't there. Like I was just doing it to do it, please my parents at the time. I was like, "Mom, out of here." It's like, "No, you got 2 more semesters, one more, whatever it was, just finish, then go." And I was like, that was my time. So ended up pulling the trigger, going down there with him. And at that time, there was no place for us to stay because we only had the one house. So I was living in a hammock on the top floor, not on the balcony of the one house that they acquired. And we were running tours with just like a couple friends that came down, like just to get started. And my brother's house was being built at the time. So eventually he got his house. And after buying the first house, then the property had room for other houses to be built. We put in the driveway and we built another little cabina house. And then, with time, little by little, we had more to the point where I had my own little apartment down there. And I was 20 years old at the time. So I didn't need much. And it was just it was supposed to be like the playroom for the guests, ping pong table or whatever inside. Ended up being my room for 15 years, maybe. Um, and we just started off as like this surfing camp. Come stay with us. We'll take you surfing. But then as time grew, as our friend we're not no longer 20 years old, they wanted to bring their families. They started having kids, or they wanted to, some people wanted to go explore different things. So we ended up saying, "Hey, why are we going to limit ourselves to just surfing? There's so much to do here. You can still surf 5 hours a day and have 8 hours of the day to go explore Costa Rica." We started taking people. I started because I was the only tour guide at this time. I started kind of going out on my own when I had off and just learning new spots, finding the waterfalls, finding different beaches, hooking up with other tour companies that offered cool stuff, and just meeting the right people where I was able to say, okay, 1 week here, I can entertain somebody and show them a great week here, doing something different every day and doing the surfing.
Hmm.
So we kind of ventured from being just Surf Costa, which was just surfing, to, hey, we'll make your week whatever you want it to be. We can, we probably have 30 days worth of fun things to do. You're only here for 6 with us. Pick 6 things out of those 30 days and you're going to leave happy. Instead of us saying, no, you're going to do this day. You're going to eat breakfast at this time. You're going to go to this place at this time. We just say, listen, let's make this week about you. And you got me the whole time you're here. So let's just make it your vacation. And I'm just going to make sure everything goes safe and everything works out, for you to go home and say, wow, that was awesome with no hiccups. A lot of people come on vacations on their own and they don't know what beach to go to. They don't know where to park. They don't know how to get there. They don't know, how to speak any Spanish to tell people they need something or something happens. So we kind of took those hiccups out, and that's how we started with Surf Costa and brought it to a little bit more than just surfing. Wow. Trying to think what else. I would say
That's awesome.
I'd say the main reason why we kinda had to venture a little bit out was because our friends started having families, and now we had 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds coming to stay with us, and we had to entertain them too. So kind of adopted or adapted to, doing different style, uh, trips for people.
It's such a cool story. Thank you for sharing like the evolution in the background. That's really neat. And for the listeners, full transparency, Brian and I are partnering. Well, I'm partnering with Brian rather on my first men's surf and yoga retreat in February. So we've been connected for some time through my co-host, Dr. Bob Butera, who used to live in the Estorios area. So we're excited about the retreat coming up, and folks can reach out for more info. We'll share all that in the notes to the show. I think it's really cool, Brian, how like you built a lifestyle around your real core passions and values. As a waterman, as a surfer, as a fisherman, like and your interest in travel and living in Central America, like you really crafted like a beautiful life with all of that in mind, and still able to get home and continue guarding in your hometown. Like tell us about that.
Yeah, so, people always would tell me like, "Oh, you're so lucky." And I cringe when I hear those words like, "You're lucky." And I'm like, "No, I left my family. I left school with one year left. My paycheck doesn't look like 99% of the other people's paychecks that are telling me I'm so lucky." So, like, I always cringe. I'm like, "No, anybody could do what I do, but you just gotta take that risk and follow your heart and, your passion," which was, like you said, I love taking people on these trips and showing them a great time and just opening their eyes to a different style of traveling. Uh, Off the grid traveling, not staying at an all inclusive where you could be anywhere in the world and get your drink from this person and get your food and do the same thing for 6 days straight. Uh, my passion was showing people because I grew up, traveling on my own. Um, Rewind a little bit, I was able to go on a vacation with one of my best friends at 13 on a cruise with his family, and it was a free for all. We got to do me and my friend, his parents, I don't know if they checked up on us one time. So for at 13 years old, we were figuring it out on our own. Then at 15, I had another friend, he brought me to Hawaii with him. Same thing. We were kind of able to just do our thing. So I kind of realized, all right, I love traveling and not that normal travel. So I wanted to show people how to do that and that they can do that. So
Mhm.
that people aren't just going to one place and standing there and saying, "Oh, it's not safe outside. We have to stay on grounds." So taking people around on these kind of trips, they start to learn, oh, wow, like, I would never have gone to this place because the news said, it's dangerous. But here I am, and I feel perfectly fine. And the people are hugging me and giving, accepting me here as if I was family members to them. So I like doing that, and then that allowed me to still follow my real passion, which was the beach and lifeguarding and following footsteps of like my dad. And uh, our camp kind of slows down during those summer months. A lot of our clientele is word of mouth. We don't do too much marketing at all. I don't know if we spend more than $1,000 in 20 years of being there on marketing. It's always been word of mouth. Like anybody that shows up at our place has been, hey, ended up here because of so and so. So since we don't have that market of the whole entire country, say most of our clientele comes from New Jersey, and nobody wants to leave New Jersey July, August, September. It's the nicest time to be here. We lived through a whole cold winter, where they have plenty of time to get away. So during those months, it kind of allowed me to say, all right, I'm not giving up on Surf Costa and just leaving it. We kind of just made our business so that people come from, say, September sometime till end of May, June. And it works out where I'm able to leave there and the rest takes care of itself if some groups do come. As we keep growing a little bit, we do get a little bit more in the summer, but I'm all about, doing both. So until it's like full on and I have to choose, which I don't think it's ever going to happen like that, I'm happy that I can follow both passions, and make it work, you know, financially and mentally. Uh, does make it hard for relationships because, nobody wants you leaving for 3 months at a time.
Sure.
Come back and forth, which most people can't necessarily. So it has been, a little tough on that end, but it all works out. It all works out.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tell us about your athletic journey. Surfing, paddling. Brian was a medalist in the 2013 Sea Paddle, the Surfers Environmental Awareness race in New York.
The autism awareness.
Is that right?
It was,
Autism awareness.
it's Surfers Environmental Alliance, but it's
Right.
autism awareness was the
Mm.
what we donated towards.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Tell us about that race. What was that like?
The first year I got into it because a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I'm doing this race. He paid for it." He's like, "I can't." He couldn't do it at the time. Like he wasn't. His thing was, "Hey, I'm putting up this money. I have this pass. Will you take it? He's going anyway, but I need you to paddle." He's like, "I'm not paddling." So I'm a knucklehead and I show up because I'm a lifeguard. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it on a 10-6 pro board, like the one we race in our little 200-yard races in competition. And I get there, people start laughing at me. They're like, I don't know how old I was at the time. I was probably had to have been like young 20s. And everybody's laughing at me. All these like big dudes. Like, I'm like, wow, well, what? They're like, yo, you're gonna do this race on that board? Like, you understand we're going 28 miles? And I'm thinking to myself, because when it started, it was 28 miles. I think it went down to 26 by the last few years of it. Listen. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna try it. I didn't even know that there was such thing. As at this time, I didn't know that there was 14-foot boards. Then there was unlimited division, which these guys are on 17s or 18-foot boards that they're controlling with their feet.
Right. The rudder.
The rudders with their feet. And here I am, like, on this 10-6, and I could do everything with my arms. So I get out there, and I think I'm like 10 miles in, and I'm like, oh, this isn't. Now I know everybody's laughing at me, but it was such a fun thing because there were so many people from all walks of life that maybe the top 20 were competing, and the other at the time, I think there was hundreds of racers at one point. The other, say, 80 racers or, you know, donators, that are just donate to, you know, team sport or whatever, they were all like around me, so it was like, oh, one guy passed you, you get into it, you start talking to another. So then halfway through, I think it was 14 miles or something, my buddy who gave me his pass, because I didn't even know about this race, right? He just gave me his like, yo, he's my guy. I paid, he's going. He had a paddleboard with him, a stand up. Now, after 15 miles on this 10 sits, I was shocked. I was like, wow, like I still got probably 13 miles left, more than almost half, and he's got a stand up paddleboard with him. So I'm like, and it's like a 10 sits also, not a race board. But I was like, yo, I'm not quitting. But now I gotta switch. Like, I'm gonna take this Keg situation. I'm gonna use, and I've never paddleboard before this. Like, it never was on one. So I started doing it. I'm like, wow, this is one, it was a whole nother muscle. So it felt like I was new again. And two, I was like, wow, this is all like this. I really like this. Like, I'm screw prone. I'm not a prone guy. I was standing. So I started stand up paddling at the rest of those 13 miles, and I was hooked. I was like, this is, well, for like the next 10 years, maybe I competed in a bunch of races around here. I was always like top five or, never the best guy, but always, getting better and better. And then that one year I trained hard, and uh, we had the worst conditions ever, but it was the most physically good shape I was probably in my life at that time.
This is 2013, roughly.
13. I think it rings a bell, 2013.
Yeah.
But lifeguarding allows you to do a lot of training. So I was doing maybe a couple hours every few days on the paddleboard and training hard. And when this one year came through, there was supposed to be, I want to say that there was a couple heavy guys from like Hawaii that are like the best. But I don't know if they were not trying or what, but the conditions sucked. And one of them ended up leaving. I don't know if the race was taking too long, but he had to leave. He had a flight to catch somewhere else. And he wasn't in the lead, this guy who everybody said was going to blow everybody out. And I was probably like in the top 10 at this point, but you don't know because it's so spread out. And then we go underneath the, I don't know if it's a GW, and the wind is in our face, and people are just dropping like flies. Like, one guy was a beast. He ended up having to stop the whole race, I think, because he had competed everything in it. Uh, and then by the end of the time, it was just me and my buddy. And I think Ryan Matthews, he was probably, because he's prone, the wind didn't affect him. He would have been in front anyway. It wasn't like that's why he was in the front, but I don't even know if we could see him. But standing up, that wind again, you're a parachute. You're going backwards if that wind's that strong. We had 3, 4 foot chop. We had wind in our 20 to 30 mile an hour winds in our face, and it was like, oh. But with that, sorry about that. But with that, as I was paddling so much at the time, I just kept going. I wasn't like, you know, complaining so much. I was just like, all right, this sucks, but just keep going. And little by little, whatever 10 guys were in front of me, I'd catch one, catch the other. Another guy, you see him just give up, like sitting down, not even trying. And next thing I know, it's just me and the one kid. And I was like, oh, it's just me and you. And now me and him, like the last few miles, I didn't even catch on that he laid down a little bit. Like, I didn't even know that was a rule because I wasn't, I did it because it was a passion, not because I was like die hard. So I didn't know the rules. And he ends up being side by side me. Like, we're just by next to each other, and we're just like, maybe he's 2 feet in front of me, and then I'm 2 feet in front of him. We get close to each other, and I fall. And once I fell, I never could carry, like, he stayed 20 feet in front of me the whole entire time. Like, I lost all energy trying to get back on the board,
Man.
back up. We're at 26 miles now, 25 miles. You could see the finish line. And I was like, "You got me, dude." I told him, I screamed it to him, like, "You got, I can't." And he wanted me to, He's like, "No, come on, let's go." But I just had nothing left in me. So I
Yeah.
ended up, staying, just finishing it out, and he finished maybe 20 seconds in front of me. And when I come around the corner, I was like, "Congratulations." I'm stoked on second. I was like, "Fuck," like, I
Mhm.
never expected that ever. In all the few years I did it, never expected it. And then when we get inside, at that time, there was a money, prize, and, Derek Dorner was in there, uh, giving away the prize. Did Derek Dorner, or was it? It might have been, I don't know if it was Derek Dorner. It was somebody. He was definitely there. I don't know if he gave us the prize, but they're like, "And our first place winner," and they called me up. I was like, "What?" And then I get wind of it that they had to DQ my buddy because he was going prone in a stand-up paddleboard race for more than 3 strokes. I don't know what the number you're allowed. And I was like, "Oh, where's the money?" Like, because there's prize money in it. They're like, "No, he gets to keep the prize money, but you get the WPA points or whatever." So it was like like a joke, like I was like,
Yeah, man.
it
That's
was like
awesome.
$1,000 prize or something. Uh, but yeah, so that year was probably the hardest year that I ended up being able to be a place, come in place. That was fun. It was,
Right.
and the last year I think I did it. I think they might have done it 1 or 2 years after that, and then it kinda fell off. Just 'cause there's so many logistics behind it, and it takes so much, effort from, like, Richard Lee, who was in charge of, the SEA, and, so much goes into it. It's a year of planning, and there's not much money to be you gotta dedicate your life to it, basically. So, hopefully, you never know, it might come back one day. Wow. They do so much for the SEA that, like, it works out, but it's not like they're not doing their job, you know?
Yeah. Little logistics of planning endurance events in Manhattan
Manhattan
hard
and the
things.
the Hudson, you're going around all of Manhattan with, you know, things from 9/11. The you got all the ferries, you got all the you got cargo ships going by you, you got the fire, boats, you got the Coast Guard boats, there's so much that goes into it that you gotta plan. The tides, there's only certain times you could do it without the tide in 10 miles an hour in your face, where you can't go against, which you end up going against sometimes because if you're not the first couple guys, then that tide turns and now you still got 5 miles left and that is in your face. And so you're just trying to beat the tides always in that race. It was a wild race. Wild race.
As a fellow paddler, it's hard to overstate how challenging that course would be. I've never done that race personally, but yeah, that's got to be tough.
I got a great story from the race before. Like this wasn't a race I was trying to win it or anything. And the current moves so fast, you have these big docks that come out, right?
Mm.
Cement docks, that are under buildings, not just like it's a boat dock. This is a building, and then you got these cement pilings, that are they're the dock. And a lady got caught in the where the water was ripping so fast in between the pilings, the big cement pilings, that her board was wedged against the two. So you got two pilings like this. If you can see my hands. The water's rushing this way, and her board is pinned against this, and she's just standing there. So I go in to go help her, and now I'm like, "Oh, man, now there's 2 of us in trouble." So we get her to the boat, and somehow I don't even know how we got her to the boat. A boat came over to help us, like, as close as it could without being in trouble, the boat. Uh, and then out of nowhere, Derek Dorner comes over. He's the biggest waterman in the world, and you don't get a bigger waterman than him. And it's just me and him now. And now he's like, "Hey," I think he asked me my name. He goes, and he's on the one side of the piling and I'm on the other. And he goes, "Yo, we're going in." And I'm like, "Going in where?" He's like, "We're going under this building." Now it's ripping 10 miles an hour. This
Mhm.
flying. It's like a river. And I'm like, and there's pines, you don't know what the heck's under you. It's pitch black. I was like, you sure? He goes, turn and go. So now we're going down. He's on one side. I can't see him. I can hear him, but you can't see him because now we're in two lanes of the pine lanes.
Mm.
I'm like, I'm, I'm like, oh man, something bad could happen right now, and nobody's gonna have a clue. Takes us about 2 minutes probably to get through. It felt like 20 minutes. Probably was quicker than that. But we finally, we're dodging. I'm bouncing off of these cement pylons because you have no control. I didn't have arm space to be able to paddle, and I got my stand up, and these stand ups are 14 feet long. There's no controlling. So I'm just trying to stay straight. And he's just screaming to me from next door. He's like, "You got this. You got this." Cause like I could tell that even he didn't feel comfortable about it. It wasn't like he was laughing.
Yeah.
After we finally get out to the end, you see light. I come out and I go, "What the friend did we just do?" He goes, big hand high five, and just like
Yeah.
he spit up slim. He goes, "I'll never forget that time." So I ran into him in the past, like random places, like maybe surf shows or something, and I'll go up to him and be like, "Yo, you probably don't remember me, but I was the one who went under the dock with you." Every time he gives me a hug, and he's like, "I'll never forget that." And it was that, like, to me, that was like that story I have. Better than winning, better than,
It's
anything,
awesome. Wow.
right? That story with him going to try to help somebody and then almost immediately help myself. So there's another cool
Wow.
battle
That's
story.
intense. That is intense.
Yeah,
I
well,
bet
the
there's
go on.
I bet there's a bunch of rescue stories in your memory bank that
Oh,
that probably tops a lot of them.
yeah, that was it wasn't like she was gonna die at that time. Maybe if she went through that thing, like you hit a piling up, there was, jagged pilings. It wasn't just this perfect cement, pilings. There was things underneath that, that were
Yeah.
old. So if she didn't go under there with somebody, yeah, I don't know if she would have came out. But we weren't even thinking. I wasn't even thinking about that. By the time we got her off, I was thinking about myself, like, how am I gonna get out now? So,
Wow.
it would never. I didn't go into that like, oh my god, I have to save her life. It was more like I'm gonna go help her. She's stuck, and I'm just gonna help her. It wasn't like, oh, Brian, you need to act now. She's gonna die. It wasn't like that. You know, like the beach rescues that we had, where you're like, wow, somebody might die right this second. So it
Mm.
became crazy. It went into it very with a smile, like, oh, I'll help you. Not knowing that ripping through there like that. So, yeah, it was a good story from Steve.
That is cool. And now you have a lifelong connection to Derek Dorner.
Well, I mean, like I said, every time I see him, if I run past, I'll mention it. I'll bring it up.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. So what was some early experiences that prepared you for something like that? Like, were you? I mean, were you swimming as a kid? Were you surfing a lot? What was your? Were you playing other sports? What was your athletic journey to that point to now?
I grew up with two competitive brothers, and we were always doing sports. Like my dad was all about. He's always like grades, sports, girls, like in that order. Like we weren't allowed to take uh, a season off. So if it was our passion was always soccer, like me and my brothers, and that was our main sport. But come winter, we had to pick a sport. Come spring, we had to pick a sport. So like throughout um grammar school and high school, we always played a sport, every season. So I did do a little bit of swimming in high school to stay in shape for soccer, just because it was a winter sport. Uh, but yeah, we always did a sport. So we were like, or I would say that, yeah. I mean, I always say like a jack of all trades, a master of none. Like we could do it all. Um, like snowboarding was a huge sport of mine growing up. Uh, then all the sports in the ocean, water sports. We always canoed. It's like a family where we went camping. So we were always around water with paddling stuff.
Mm.
I don't know what I think if my buddy didn't say, "Hey, Brian, fill in for me. I can't paddle this. Like I'm a money guy. I'm not a athlete. You need to be my athlete." I don't know if I would have gotten into them. You know? I don't know. I think that was like, you know, destiny that he offered that spot to me that he wasn't going to use. And I was like, yeah, man, let's go. Well, I don't know, we were always not so much on the competitive side of that as to we just were good in we loved the water. Lifeguarding when I was 15, that's when the competition started of, paddleboarding, not the stand up because we don't do stand up in lifeguarding, which is a shame because I think it's one of the best ways to lifeguard. Uh, but the rowing was always big in my family. My dad still competes in rowing for Asbury Park, Beach Patrol at 70 years old. All my uncles still do it. Uh, so, that competition part of the lifeguarding is probably the most competition that I see now is, where the lifeguarding end of it. So that probably was what kept me in it from a beginning age to be till this age now. Um, but yeah, I would say I got to thank lifeguarding for that competition part of the water sports for sure.
For those that are less familiar, the New Jersey lifeguarding tradition is so rich. I mean, there's just like deep history. Every shore point has like this unique lineage and kind of special culture, and it's like just camaraderie amongst all the guards up and down the shore. And you're bringing kids to nationals now, is that right?
Yeah.
With the juniors program?
To go back to put in perspective of where a 3-month job stands in the world of lifeguarding, in the last 50 years, 46 times LA County has won the United States national competition. Well, the other 4 were Monmouth County. So, you're going against Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Palm Beach, San Diego, Cal State, all the Texas beaches. You're going against Rehoboth. You're going against all the New York beaches. So the fact that we've gotten 4 out of those 50, now it's 51, and there's one other team now that also won. Um, we're up there with the best. So it's very huge lifestyle in New Jersey. Lifeguarding is huge. Like people would have no clue. You didn't grow up in New Jersey or near the beach, you have no clue what goes into it. And our local competitions are insane. Going against all the Monmouth County teams. Nationals, we all come together and we compete as a team. When
Mhm.
beating the nationals, we're battling it every week. There's a competition in one of the towns and we're going at it for sure. All fun and games. There's a little bit of fighting and bickering going on, but the moment the competition ends, you're having a beer at the bar, laughing about it. But it gets intense. People get hurt, boats are flying, breaking, boards are breaking, kayaks are breaking. And so
Super competitive.
super competitive. Huge.
Yeah. Um, what was it like? Yeah, your brother ended up moving towards competitive surfing at one point. Your brother Mike Gleason, who now runs a great shop in Jersey, Tap Waterman. Tell us about that. Like, where did you ever gravitate towards competitive surfing, or is that just kind of a passion sport for you?
The only board sport that I could beat my little brother in is snowboarding. Anything else, skateboarding, surfing, he always I could beat him in paddleboarding team. But, anything, standing up on it, he was innate. He's had it in him from we all started at 1 or 2 years old with my dad pushing us into waves.
Mhm.
5 or 6, he had the addiction, of it. That's all he wanted to do, where we were only soccer players, but if I had soccer practice or game and there was good waves, I was never missing the soccer, where he would be upset to miss the surfing, to play soccer, even though he was just as good at soccer. Um, so we always knew he was gonna be somebody. Or his style with the skateboard on the half pipe, just throwing airs at 10 years old, you just knew he had it in him.
Wow.
And we, at about age 15, we went to school with one of the best surfers New Jersey. His name was Mike Garino, and he ended up moving his way up Volcom. He was sponsored by Volcom. He was like our local surf pro um, at the time. He ended up moving up into like a rep job with Volcom where his competitive surfing kind of stopped. And he was like, "Hey, this kid, Mike Gleason, you got to look at him. This is the next, this is the future." And they hooked him up at 15, I think, around that age. Volcom started giving him, a sponsorship. And I think he held on till after 30, he was still getting paid or getting stuff, sponsored by Volcom, where he's going to at 16, he was going to the Volcom house by himself,
Mm.
the proving grounds, living
Oh.
amongst, Bruce Irons and all the best. And he would be scared shitless. Like he went and he did it what he had to do, but it wasn't easy for him. He definitely had to really look deep to do it. Because he had the skill, just being on his own, and like threatening waves that, nobody wants to, you know, not too many people can deal with. He, he, so he kept it. He's still a pro surfer. I mean, if you watch him out in the water, like he's still him, Sam, Hammer, Rob Kelly, those kind of guys, even at their age, over 40, whatever, uh, they're still the best in the water. There's nobody, you watch them with 20 guys in the water and you're still like, who's that guy? The power of surfing of them is just doesn't go away. Like maybe like they're not doing all the tricks in the air like they were, back then. They still have that crazy power, which a lot of people respect in the surfing world. And
Mm.
you don't see so much. You see a lot of those tricks in the air, and everybody's doing the air reverses and stuff. It's like a dime a dozen now, but not too many people are throwing down rail and throwing spray 50 feet away from rolling. Well,
Mm.
it's something that they stand out with still, both those guys. Uh, but yeah, and then I was always worried about him because like, I never knew what he's gonna do after the pro surfing career, and started this Tap Waterman, which was a clothing company at first, like the UPF shirts and the hoodies and stuff, and that grew in. They started selling a good amount. And, I mean, now you see it all over New Jersey. Um, but once they started selling a good amount, they were like, "Hey, why don't we start a surf shop and a fishing?" It's just more of a fishing store now because it takes up most of the, it's called Tap Waterman Surf and Fish. Most of the store frontage is fishing stuff, and in the back they have their surfing stuff. But there's no money in surfing nowadays. Like I would
Yeah.
say, like somebody will buy one surfboard a year and be happy, maybe even for 2 years. But a fisherman, they're buying a different rod and reel and lure for every single type of fish they're gonna go catch. So they might have 20 rods and 20 reels and
Mhm.
1,000 lures, where it's constant growth, for the business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm very proud of where he ended up after his surfing career because you give your whole life to surfing to a company like Volcom, and then all of a sudden they're too old and they're like, "See you later." You
Mhm.
don't have pension. You don't have anything to show for it unless you had a manager telling you what to do with all your money, and you know, not like there was ever tons of money in it, but once you hit that age, and they're like, because it's year to year contracts, you don't know
Right.
here you might get hurt, you're done. But he held on.
It's interesting how you guys, went in slightly different directions, but um, both, very entrepreneurial, um, at your core, um, growing your own businesses and still living the ocean lifestyle. I think that's really cool. How that's kind of a common thing for you guys.
Yeah, we especially growing up in where we grew up, like kind of everybody follows the same. Or go to school, they did a good job. A lot of them took the boat into New York, but I feel like our crew, that beach club that I told you we grew up at, that like hard crew of kids that we grew up with, all kind of do amazing stuff. We all do something cool, different, outside of the box. Uh, we're not necessarily putting on a suit and tie every day. So I always, and that's how his name came up with Tack Waterman, was because the beach club was called Tallahassee. So that's
Mm.
where, he became who he is from that beach club where he started Tack Waterman. Um, and yeah, I gotta owe it a lot of what all me and my cousins or friends do that today in life. A lot of it has to do with where we started our beach life.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Um, Tell us about what it's like training younger guards. What does that look like for you and your
I,
summers now? And as a coach, as a mentor, tell us about that experience a little bit.
I'm real passionate now is long range junior guards and all the junior guards in Mama County. Like any kid, like I'll help them all. If they want help at the competitions, I'm always rooting on the other kid. It's not like I want my kid to win. Like I always like pushing all these kids because they are the future. These kids, are gonna keep the lifeguarding light New Jersey lifeguarding alive. Uh, Without these programs, these junior guard programs, there is no lifeguard. Like one day that competition that we have and that where we stand in the world won't be there. We'll lose it. We'll lose the competition end of it. Yeah, it'll still be lifeguards there, but there won't be that competition if we're not teaching them how to be the best. Um, like you see a lot of these teams, like the Fort Lauderdales and stuff, and LA County had a great program. And a lot of these other teams that are good as adults because they get college swimmers becoming lifeguards and they're getting paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be lifeguards. In New Jersey, if you make $15,000 at the end of the summer, that's good. So there's no incentive for a college kid to ever come back, after school and say, I'm going to be a lifetime lifeguard. Like in LA County, some of those guys are making funny money. So there's reason for them to keep competing and stuff. So we don't, teach these kids at this young age that like, hey, my passion is being on the beach and saving lives, even if I'm not going to do it forever or make a living necessarily off of it. I'm still going to
Mm.
pop that in me and come back and compete when I can or work on the weekends or because, I'm going into the city 5 days a week, but I love lifeguarding so much in that competition part. I'm coming back to work the weekends because it doesn't feel like work.
Mm.
So it all starts with that feeder program. Plus, for like long ranch stand, looking at long ranch, we hire 150 lifeguards. We're probably one of the biggest agencies in the country. Uh, Behind like in LA County, we're definitely way bigger than like a Fort Lauderdale, who's all year round. Um, if we don't train these kids, then we don't have anything to pick from when we need them at 16 years old. So they start with us at 6 years old. So by the time they're 15, they're better than half the lifeguards that never learned and just came out off the street. Uh, and they get it and they have a job, and we can fill our 150 lifeguards because there's a program now. We've had up to 500 people in our program during COVID years. We didn't really have too many. You're outside on the beach, the sun, whatever. We didn't have any rules against you couldn't come. We weren't closing down our program. Some places closed down their program. We were like, "Hey, we're going. We're not telling you have to come, but if you wanna come," we made cool tap waterman face masks for them, and they, it was, they all got one that year. And I think we had 500 kids show up that year. It was, like, crazy because all the other towns didn't do it.
Mm.
Um, when we started, me and my very good friend, Matt Siciliano, we started our program probably almost 20 years ago now. We only had 5 kids, and they were the mayor's son, the firefighters' sons, like, people that were connected in the city, and they're like, "Yo, man, we teach our kid." And then we just grew this program to a whole 'nother level to where we're one of the top teams in the country, uh, and, now they go and compete nationally alongside us. So, the junior guards, they compete at nationals on the Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the adults compete. So we're all like under Monmouth County. Seagird's incredible. Manasquan, like all the other beaches have great kids too. They're not all going. The top kids of each team are going, but it's open to any of them. If any of them want to go, they can go. So we sent the girl down this year to Texas, and she came home with 9 ribbons and medals. You know, she did every competition. She was one of 2 Monmouth County junior guards, and she racked up everything she did. It's awesome. It's tough because it was in Texas. We didn't have a lot of people. Last year was in Virginia Beach. The year we won, we had 40 kids go down. You know, it's an easy drive for the parents and stuff. Texas was 2 flights. It was a little bit harder. We'll start next year, Burns. Well, yeah, it all starts with the kids. Like now I work alongside a lot of the kids that we started, that are now, I don't know if you saw my post the other day from See Here Now, but they're two friends of mine. They were junior guards of mine, little little girls, and now they're adults that See Here Now, and are like, "Come on, let's do a picture." It's awesome. I love it. The years go by quick. So when they're 12 years old, before you know it, they're 18 and they're lifeguarding with you and saving a life with you. There's no better feeling.
Yeah, such a close connection. I bet.
Oh, it's very meet a lot of people. Like later on in life, you normally like start meeting less people, and you're not in like the social scene or anything. I feel like as I get older, I keep meeting more and more cool people because they're like,
Awesome. Awesome. Tell us about how you personally take care of your body, mind, and spirit to cultivate your optimal performance in competition and just for life. Like, what do you do to take care of yourself? And I know you're surfing, you're taking tours out, you're running on the beach, but what what are some of your like daily practices that really work well for you?
I really got into like breath work. Uh, my mom had ALS for 7 years of our life, and it was like a battle. Like it was a battle to deal with watching your mom suffer. Uh, Knowing that when the doctor she came on was like, yeah, every year and a half left. Like I'm being perfectly normal, and that was like I was 40 years old at the time, I think 31, 32. And I was like, "What are you talking about, mom?" Like, my mom's a beast. Like, she never complained. She never got sick. Like, and if she did, she didn't say she was sick. And when she told us that, we were just like, "No, this is BS. Like, this is something else. They messed up." And then, little by little, she started progressing and she ended up living for 7 more years. We all got to watch her pass away, uh, be there for her, and come together as a family. And I also came out of a 5-year relationship with a girl that, I thought maybe I would marry one day. So it all hit me at once where I was like, all right, now you need to, your mom just died. You just came out of this relationship. Now we're going to start thinking about you. Those first 7 years, I was thinking about my mom. Like, that's all I'm thought about. Even though I'm still in shape and still doing my stuff, I needed to really be like, all right, you're focusing on Brian right now. And that's when I became in love with like, you know, I really at that time really enjoyed the Wim Hof stuff of getting into the ice baths every day, getting into the breath holds that he does. A lot of people right or wrong or good for you, bad for you. For me, it was a game changer.
What did you notice? What was an effect you noticed from that practice?
Um, I think like so before maybe like the Wim Hof and that stuff, maybe I got into just like I went to a retreat, going back to this men's retreat that we can go back on. Uh, I kind of was like, all right, I'm gonna go try and do one of these retreats. And this was with like 100 people, all different guys, girls, everything. Um, and one of the things was one of my buddies that I met at the retreat was gonna do a breathwork class. And I sat in on it. this was probably one of my lowest moments, but it wasn't like a low moment where I was like, yeah, right, I hate life. It's just like a low moment where I was just like, all right, you got to figure things out. And I did this and I was like, wow, that was the best hour I've had in months, So that's what got me my ball rolling. And I was like, wow, this is a whole nother game and I never even knew about. Um, so I started to learn how to calm myself down with pranayama, like just my breath, whether I wanted to heat myself up, cool myself down, slow my mind down, uh, concentrate, a little bit, be a little bit more present, help me with the ice baths breathing, because the last thing you could do in an ice bath is start hyperventilating.
Right.
I was always bad with the cold, even though like I love hiking and like snowboarding, all the cold sports. I was dressed warm, but I was always bad at being cold, you know.
Mm.
So it taught me how to deal with cold, uh, and just calm my body down and learn that with your breath you can control everything. It's you want to if you're say you're a drug addict and you want to feel differently, you can do it with your breath. You don't need
Mm.
to take some substance to bring yourself to feel euphoric or your body tingling or feel like you're floating or something. Whatever you want to do with it, there's a way to breathe to make you feel that way. Um, so that just kind of evolved into learning different ways of breathing, and uh, so then I'd say that the breath breathing is probably the thing that kind of kept me grounded the most these last 3 4 years. Uh, Something I really enjoyed uh, teaching. I teach kids that like they start coming out of the water freezing cold at junior guards and started shoots. The water's 55 degrees, like these kids are like, you're trying to get them to like the water, and all of a sudden they're going into this water and they're like, screw this, I'm not coming back. No, I don't want it. So I try to like sit them down and do some box breathing with them or some kind of breathing where, and then I'll talk to them about like, hey, if at school you ever get upset, try this type of breathing that's also helping you warm yourself up a little bit or
Mm.
uh, get your mind off of you shivering, and so those kind of things is something that I'm interested in. You know, it keeps me always teaching people that don't know much about breath because I didn't know anything about it, until I started.
Isn't it funny how we're constantly breathing, but we're not aware
No
of
clue.
how we're breathing.
Well, we'd have absolutely fallen our, and I'd say I was one of them. I had no clue how many times a day I was breathing or how many times I should be breathing or, you know, breathing out your mouth, breathing out your nose, like things that you're just never taught. And it makes me wonder, how the system, get off topic, but how the system, like what they teach us. Because that's something I could teach a kindergarten. It's
Yeah.
going to them for the rest of their life. Like, hey, breathe like this when you start getting upset. It's going to
Yeah.
calm you down. But not one person I never was told that in my life. I was told by different coaches 20 different things of how I should be breathing when I'm running,
Yeah.
or sprinting. Like everybody told me something different. Uh, so it's something that I try to, now, like if I see a kid upset, I sit them down and I go over. I'm not maybe not talking to all the kids about it at once, but like when it happens, I'll teach them something that helped me, and hopefully it sticks with them, and they go on to fortune, you know,
Yeah.
company that they can use that practice when things hit the fan.
You're
And
sharing a gift with any kid that you can teach to breathe better.
adults, but you could definitely teach kids. It sticks to them. There are things
Yep.
that
Yep. And it's cool how you talked about like this new kind of insight and awareness became available like when maybe you needed it the most at that kind of point
I
in
always
life.
I always go back to rock bottom is not a bad thing, whether it's, mentally or physically. When you hit that bottom, you start, you know, learning new things or looking at different, looking outside the box. It was like, all right, what, maybe it was always supposed to be a passion of mine. I just didn't know, and I had to go through the hardships
Right.
to go and seek it out, and it's all it took. And then I said, "Oh, thank you God for these hardships because now these passions of mine are part of
Right.
my daily routine that would never have been if I didn't lose my girlfriend or lose my mom in the same week, like things like that.
Sure.
It all comes back to being thankful for those things that hurt me the most. So, oh, no regrets.
Well put. Well put there. Yeah. Um, how can folks learn more about you and your work with Surf Costa? And we'll kind of work to wrap up. Um, and just mention the retreat once more, but how can folks find you and learn more about experiences that they might have with you in Costa Rica?
So I always try to like through my Instagram, I try to like show stories and post what we're doing with other groups. Um, it's tough just through my Instagram because I'm also then in the summertime, I'm just posting about lifeguard stuff and the kids and the junior guard program winning and all their practices. And so, but when I am in Costa Rica, I kind of do try to do a lot on my Instagram, my personal Instagram, which most of my clients come through my Instagram. Like they'll see what I do and they're like, hey, can we come? So the Surf Costa on Instagram doesn't do as much justice. Like we have a lot of random people that follow us on there, and maybe not so much for the reason of ever coming to Surf Costa. So I feel like my personal Instagram has always given me a better chance of getting future clients or friends from that'll come and stay with me and give us a chance. It's our website's terrible. Like it's very outdated and we've still made it work because of word of mouth and 20 years of doing it and never screwing somebody over. That goes a long ways, um, that word of mouth is, I always say, is the best type because you're not getting the person that's not going to enjoy it. You're always like, you come and stay with us and you're going back to your friends that would like our style. And you're not telling your friend that stays at the all inclusive and wants to go to the casino to come stay with us because they're not going to have fun with us. Instead of trying to like persuade people through a web page and be like, "Oh, we're perfect for everybody." We know we're not perfect for everybody. So the word of mouth kind of has helped us keep it with people that are happy when they come and stay with us. It hurts you financially because you're not bringing in all the people that maybe you potentially could, but at least the people we are bringing in are sending us people back. Instead of having a bad review or having some group that had a terrible time because they weren't into our style and going back and talking bad about us and saying, that our place is the worst or something like that.
Well,
Uh,
I can promise any of the folks listening, Brian's got an amazing setup. Bryan has an amazing heart. He's doing awesome work, and he's excellent at everything he does. So definitely check him out. So it's Bryan at Surf Costa as the Instagram.
it's Brian underscore.
Bryan under right, Bryan underscore Surf Costa. We'll link to that in the show notes. Um, yeah, there's a great photo on the top of his of his handle. You're taking a kid surfing at a benefit event recently. I think it was Surfers Healing.
It's on my thing. Oh, you were saying my first picture, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What a cool
It's just it's a great photo. There's just a kid, you're lifting this kid up by its life vest, like riding a longboard. He's just got a huge smile. It's awesome.
cool stuff. And that
Yeah.
that that probably brings me the biggest smiles in the summer being those events.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for making time for us, and we hope again listeners can check you out and potentially join us in
Uh,
February. We're
Real quick for anybody that's looking to come. join us in February, just do it. It's something that, go outside of your normal, routine. And I promise you're going to meet cool people from different walks. Nobody's going to really know each other. Uh, we're just going to do cool, healthy stuff the whole time. Surf, um, breathwork, uh, yoga, and you're just going to be like, wow, I feel great after this week. It's not going to be, you're not doing it to go party and, you're doing it because when you come back, you're going to be like, oh, I feel great. And that's what it's about. My retreat that I ever did was not something I had ever planned for, but because I did it, it's changed me. So I hope that for anybody that's, you know, up in the air about it, just pull the trigger and go.
Yeah,
I think people that do go are going to be very happy they went.
guaranteed, 100%. We're excited for it. It's an investment in personal growth. Everything Bryan said. Yeah, great having you on the show, Bryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dak. Keep doing good things.
Likewise.
Now we'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
I hope this show helps us all access our highest potential. You can learn more about my work as a yoga therapist at FlowStateYogaTherapy.com or on social media at FlowStateYogaTherapy. You can also email me at FlowStateYogaTherapy@gmail.com. I look forward to connecting with you all. I hope you find an interesting nugget in this episode. I hope you share this with a friend, and I hope you reach out to me with feedback. It is valuable. Thank you again, and enjoy the journey.